They transferred this inmate overnight. What happened on the road was terrifying. The night run. Before we begin, make sure you hit subscribe if you love unraveling the kinds of cases that keep investigators awake at night, because what you're about to hear is one of those stories people don't forget. They moved him quietly, almost secretly, long after the courthouse lights went dark. No public notice. No formal announcement. Just a simple order stamped in the transfer log: Inmate Randall Pike, relocated before sunrise. No explanation. No warning. Just an urgent directive that 2 correctional transport officers were told to follow without asking questions. Officer Mara Kelman had been on overnight transports before, but something about this assignment bothered her. Pike wasn't notorious. He wasn't violent. He wasn't connected to any gang on record. Yet the warden insisted he be moved out of state immediately, as if keeping him in the facility for one more night would put everyone at risk. Pike stepped onto the transport van with a calmness that didn't match the situation. His hands were cuffed, ankles restrained, but his posture was relaxed. Too relaxed. Kelman noticed it instantly. "You know why they're rushing you out?" she asked. Pike gave a faint smile. "Officer, if they didn't tell you, they definitely don't want me telling you." Her partner, Officer Tim Rourke, locked the van door and pulled away from the loading bay. The tires splashed through thin layers of rainwater left over from a late evening storm. The sky was pitch black, moon buried somewhere behind swollen clouds. Their route was long, 5 hours through rural highway that wound between miles of empty fields and shuttered gas stations. For the first hour, nothing unusual happened. Rourke drove. Kelman watched Pike, trying to figure him out. He wasn't agitated. He wasn't afraid. He was expectant. Like he knew something the officers didn't. Around 2:17 a.m., the van shook. A subtle tremor at first, then a violent jolt. Rourke gripped the wheel as the engine sputtered. "You feel that?" Kelman asked. "Yeah." "Hang on." The dashboard lights flickered. A warning indicator blinked, then another. The van lost speed, crawling to a near stop before coasting onto the shoulder of an isolated stretch of Route 81. No houses. No traffic. No backup within miles. Kelman reached for the radio. Static. She tried again. Nothing. Even the emergency band was dead. That's when Pike leaned forward slightly. "You should have checked the maintenance logs," he said quietly. Rourke turned in his seat. "What does that mean? Did you do something to the van?" Pike shook his head. "Not me. I've been locked up. Ask your supervisors why they put you in this thing. Ask them why they rushed this transfer. They knew this vehicle wasn't fit for the road." Kelman stepped out to inspect the exterior, rain pattering against her jacket. She crouched beside the van's front tire, and froze. The lug nuts were loose. All of them. Loosened intentionally. She scanned the opposite tire. Same thing. Someone had tampered with the van before they left the facility. She stood, heart pounding, a sharp chill rising in her arms. This wasn't a mechanical failure. This was deliberate. Before she could speak, she heard Rourke shout from inside the vehicle. "Mara! Get back in here, now!" She rushed to the passenger door and climbed in. Rourke was staring at the metal lockbox mounted to the floor, the one that held their transport documents, medical forms, and sealed case notes for every inmate on board. The lockbox was open. Their files were gone. All of Pike's paperwork, missing. And Pike, still restrained, said one sentence that made the entire van feel colder than the night outside. "You're not the only ones who don't know why I'm being moved. Someone out there wants to make sure none of us make it to the destination." Kelman whispered, "What are you talking about?" Pike lifted his eyes slowly, terrified for the first time. "Because I wasn't the only target." The van suddenly shook again, but this time, from outside. Something, or someone, was moving in the dark. The road behind them wasn't empty. The van rocked gently, almost rhythmically, as if someone were testing its weight in the dark. Officer Kelman froze, her hand hovering above her holster, listening. Rourke swallowed hard, trying to peer through the rain-streaked windows, but the glass caught only the reflection of the dashboard lights. "Who's out there?" Kelman called, voice steady but low. No answer. Just the soft scrape of gravel shifting beneath unseen footsteps. Pike leaned slightly forward despite the restraints. "If you want the truth, you'll have to stop pretending this is a simple transfer. They don't move people like me at 2 in the morning unless something's gone very wrong." Rourke shot him a warning glare. "Save it." Nobody asked for a speech. Pike didn't back down this time. "Officer, someone tampered with your van. Someone stole the case files. You think that's random? You're in danger because of something you don't know yet. And if you don't start asking the right questions, we're not getting out of here." Before Kelman could respond, a beam of faint light swept across the side of the road, a flashlight. Someone was walking along the driver's side, slow and deliberate. Rourke whispered, "Backup doesn't use flashlights on approach. They signal with the cruiser lights." Kelman quietly reached for the radio again. Still dead. She moved her hand to unlock her door when Pike suddenly said, "Don't go out there." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because whoever's out there isn't coming to help you." A sharp knock struck the driver's window. Rourke nearly jumped. He forced himself to breathe, wiped fog from the inside of the glass, and angled his flashlight upward. What he saw made his brow tighten. A man in a hooded rain jacket stood inches away, his face obscured by shadows. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't signaling distress. He was just watching them. Kelman stepped out anyway, keeping one hand ready. "Sir," she called firmly, "identify yourself." The hooded man didn't answer. Rain rolled off his shoulders, forming small rivers along the asphalt. He lifted one hand slightly, not threateningly, almost like he wanted to point at something behind the van. Kelman's instincts turned cold. "Stay where you are," she ordered. The hooded stranger took a step back, then another, retreating into the darkness until the flashlight's beam faded with him. No running. No panic. He simply disappeared between the rows of trees bordering the highway. Rourke unlocked his door and ran to Kelman. "We need to call this in. Now." "We've been trying," she said. They made a decision: wait inside the van until sunrise or until another patrol unit happened upon this stretch of road. The storm clouds shifted overhead, thunder rumbling in the distance. Inside the van, Pike finally spoke again. "You want the truth? I was a witness. Not in a courtroom, in a back-office deal involving people above your pay grade. The kind of people who don't leave trails. I wasn't supposed to survive long enough to talk." Kelman slowly turned toward him. "Who exactly is after you?" Pike exhaled shakily, his confidence slipping. "I don't know names. But I know they're connected enough to make files disappear and sabotage a transport vehicle without anyone questioning it. And if they tampered with your van, they knew this route, this time, this road." A sudden thud hit the rear doors. Rourke spun around. That came from the back. Another thud. Louder. Kelman took a careful breath. "Pike, is this them? Are they trying to get you?" Pike shook his head. "No. If they wanted me gone, they wouldn't waste time knocking." A silence stretched. Then he added, barely audible, "That knock wasn't for me, it was for you." Kelman stepped toward the rear doors, nerves electrified. "Rourke, get ready," she whispered. They opened the doors together, fast, controlled, prepared to confront whoever was behind the van. But nobody was there. Just rain, asphalt, and the empty stretch of highway behind them. Then Kelman noticed something lying on the ground. A small, laminated card weighted down with a stone. She picked it up carefully. It was an official state badge. Rourke's face went pale. "Is that?" Kelman nodded slowly. "This belongs to Internal Affairs." Pike closed his eyes. "You're starting to understand," he murmured. This wasn't an ambush. He looked up at them with a fear that felt too real to ignore. This was a warning. The truth was already on the road with them. Kelman stared at the internal affairs badge in her hand, rain dripping from its edges. The name had been scratched off, leaving only the department seal, deliberate, precise, impossible to ignore. Whoever left it wanted them to know something, but not everything. Rourke paced beside the van, his nerves stretched thin. Why would internal affairs be out here? Why follow a transport? Why not just call ahead? Pike answered before Kelman could. Because this isn't about helping you. Someone in your chain of command didn't want this transfer to succeed. Internal affairs doesn't investigate inmates. They investigate officers, or departments. Kelman's stomach tightened. Are you saying we were set up? No, Pike said quietly. I'm saying someone expected you to fail. A gust of wind swept through the trees, bending branches like they were bowing under some unseen weight. Far down the highway, faint headlights flickered through the mist. A vehicle approached slowly, cautiously, almost as if surveying the road before committing to it. Rourke grabbed his flashlight and shone it toward the distant glow. Finally. That's got to be backup. But Pike didn't look relieved. He looked terrified. That's not backup, he said. Backup arrives fast, lights flashing. Whoever's driving that, they're trying not to be noticed. Kelman tensed. The headlights grew larger, revealing a dark SUV with no visible markings. It rolled to a stop about 50 yards behind the disabled van, engine humming deep and steady. For several seconds, nobody moved. The SUV just sat there, idling like a predator waiting for the right moment. Rourke whispered, "We need to get Pike into the woods and move on foot. We can follow the highway until sunrise." But Pike shook his head. "If we run, they'll assume I told you everything. They'll chase all three of us." Kelman looked at him. "Did you?" Pike hesitated, then answered with unsettling clarity. "No. I've only told you what I was allowed to know. The rest, those files they took. That's where the real danger is." The SUV's driver's side door opened. A single figure stepped out. Not the hooded man from before. Someone else, dressed in plain clothes, posture confident, moving like they belonged in situations most people would run from. They stopped at the edge of the headlights, hands in plain view. "Officers," the person called out, "we need to talk." Kelman kept Pike behind her and lifted her hand cautiously. "Identify yourself." The figure raised a small wallet badge. "Special Investigator Harris, Internal Affairs Division. I'm here regarding your transport order." Rourke called back, "Then why hide your approach? Why stalk us on the highway?" Harris paused. Rain fell between them like a curtain. "Because someone inside your facility forged a transfer authorization," Harris said. "There was no approved order to move this inmate tonight. Whoever initiated it used my division's credentials." Kelman felt the world tilt slightly. "You're telling us the transfer itself was fake?" "Correct," Harris said. "We believe someone attempted to move inmate Pike off the books. Either to silence him or deliver him to a third party. We've been trying to intercept this transport all night, but someone disabled our communication relay." Pike lowered his head. "They really wanted me gone." Harris nodded. "And they were willing to put 2 officers at risk to do it." Kelman took a step forward. "We were nearly run off the road. Someone loosened our tires. Someone stole the paperwork." "That wasn't us," Harris said. "There's another group involved, someone with access and authority. And until we uncover who forged that order, none of us are safe." Behind them, the trees rustled again, but this time, not from the wind. A second unmarked vehicle rolled quietly onto the shoulder, lights off. Harris turned sharply. "That's not mine," he said. Kelman's pulse spiked. "Then who?" The second SUV's doors opened. 2 individuals stepped out, not rushing, not hiding. They looked at Harris, then at Pike, then at the officers. Harris whispered, "That's the group we've been trying to expose." The strangers began walking toward them. Slow. Focused. Intentional. Kelman drew a breath and positioned herself in front of Pike. Rourke squared his stance beside her. Harris moved to their flank, hand on his badge like a silent shield. The strangers stopped only 15 feet away. One of them spoke, voice calm and chillingly sure. "Officer Kelman, Officer Rourke, step aside. We aren't here for you." Kelman didn't move. "You forged the transfer order." The stranger nodded once. "And we're here to finish what your facility couldn't." Silence. Then Harris stepped forward. "This ends tonight." For several long seconds, nobody moved. The storm clouds cracked with distant thunder. The strangers held their ground. The officers held theirs. And then, from far down the highway, multiple patrol sirens erupted at once. The strangers exchanged a single look, turned, and retreated to their vehicle. Both SUVs sped off into the night, disappearing before the sirens even reached the mile marker. When the first real law enforcement car arrived, Kelman finally exhaled. The forged order, the sabotage, the men in the SUVs, everything pointed to something bigger than any single inmate. Pike looked at her, exhausted. "You see why I couldn't stay in one place?" She nodded. "This isn't a transfer anymore. It's an investigation." Months later, official statements would say the attempted off-the-books transfer was under review, and no suspects were publicly identified. But every officer at that facility knew the truth. Whoever forged that order wasn't done yet. And neither was Internal Affairs. If this story shook you, hit subscribe. The next case goes even deeper.